Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Michael Fiorentino and I'm here with Ian Sklarsky, who is a real living artist. And we're going to talk about some topics like South by Southwest, where he just participated in a panel, and AI and art, and sort of like the future of media in general. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it's what I do.
So first of all, let's talk about the background that's happening in your scene. It's pretty much like I would say maybe late 80s, early 90s.
I mean, it's my TV, of course. Yeah, no, it's so I have on Instagram, I have something called my little TVs. It's my TV sets. And when I find something funny, I throw on a quick image process through an app called Recreate. This one is, a 90s family room. And what I do on this side, I like how it's like the weather channel. So on this side, what I do is I take this image out and I make it a PNG file. There's also a big poster of a lady behind me. So
There's like this demon,
if
like,
you see this face, it's not a
that's
demon.
going on.
She's very nice. I'll show you in a second because it's something that I made for New York Fashion Week with AI. But what I do is then I make this into an image so that I can place the video inside of it. And so I can showcase all these videos in a family room photo so that people get like more nostalgic feels for it. And that's like one of my biggest, I think, hard-ons, for lack of a better word, of the AI world, are able to build on nostalgia because it's something that was lost that a lot of us wish we had the utensils of capturing that we do now back then. But yeah, that's my background.
Yeah, it's a pretty accurate room. I think when a lot of people think of 80s and 90s, they think of that Memphis style. That's all these bright colors and neon and day glow until you get to the mid 90s and it's very earth tones. But everything in my house growing up was paneling, wood paneling everywhere
Yeah.
until I learned that I could paint it. And then I painted every room in my house to just make it not that color. And now I kind of like faux bois, like the plastic that looks like
Country core.
country. I'm not country core, I would say.
It's like, I mean, it's like, I would say Cracker Barrel core is, well, I'm Midwest, so we had a little bit of that, it kind of looks like this. But yeah, so I have fun with backgrounds.
So we'll get more into that. I want to hear about all the projects you do, and I don't mind if we get a little comprehensive with that. First, I want to hear from South by Southwest.
I just got back from my first South by Southwest, which is interesting because when I left, they made an announcement that music isn't going to be part of the program next year for the first time in 40 years. So they've seen a drop off in the music attendance. And I think Rolling Stone is going to pick it up and kind of make it its own music week after. So that was an interesting thing. The tech and TV and video portions of it were the bigger draws for everybody. The movie premieres, the talks and panels about technology. Now that Texas is becoming a tech hub for all of these companies that are moving from California and kind of planting themselves in Austin, I can see that that is a pretty big, mover and shaker for South by Southwest.
I think that's where a lot of apps has got their ground in that time where all the apps that still exist, well, I guess they have different names now, but all the apps that like launched at that time, they did really well and just kind of they ran with it, but they were all launched there. That became a thing. And then it became associated with media, new tech, and it kind of took over a lot of other more corporate venues because it was supposed to be a mixture of art and tech.
Right. The panel was held by a guy named Francis Prev, who is a sound designer, audio engineer, kind of amazing character. We met at a music festival this past summer, and we just hit it off. And he was really interested in the AI capabilities that I was working on. So his thing was he was part of the panels for South by Southwest, and he got really interested because he and a lot of the people that were dealing with these panels were finding out that they were more corporate leaned, and it became like a really corporate thing, and they were wanting more and more artists. So he invited me to come speak about the utilization of the tech that I'm using for music creation. And I've composed, or I prompted, because composition is not the term for it, and creation is not really the type of wording for it too. It should be like curation. Yeah, I've generated and curated over, and I timed it out, 4 months of music. So you can listen to all the songs that I've prompted back to back, and you'll be listening for 4 full months. Title of the panel was Redefining Creation, AI and the Artist's Toolbox. They record everything, so the audio is there for everybody to listen to, and I just listened to it. And I'll provide the link. And what we did was we talked about, without regards to the upending and ever going to be battle of copyright usage, IP usage, the legalities of all of it, we talked about the creation aspect. And I think the first thing that we have to do is throw our minds into the curvature of everything is usable in the artist's world. We get access of information correspond with what we deliver in our creations all the time. So it's ever present. We take a walk down the street, we hear someone whistling a song, we see a bird flying, we note a color of some lady's dress that she's wearing, and we're like, oh, I'm going to use that. So in a sense, what we did was we had a discussion, and it was me, Francis Prev, and Danny Deal, who is a Chicago music remixer, creator, and DJ. And we sat through an hour-long conversation about the essence of creation and our new tools that we have to work with.
So one was the DJ who did remixing. I want to hear what everyone did and what you did.
Danny Deal. She's a big deal. So she's also with a company called BandLab, and they have an AI section where you can go in and ask for music to be made. It's a lot of EDM, a lot of house, a lot of dance music, pop music, which is funny because I stray so far away from that stuff. I have a really wide appreciation of all music. I like to dabble in like world music. Lute music is what I wake up to every single morning. You know, I have my coffee, I have my classical music, but then I get into like exploration, and I feel like the paths of exploration that we have now, like Apple Music, Spotify, and stuff like that, only hold a very small amount of the music that's out in the world. And so I like to dive into complete different areas and explore realms like that. There's an app that allows you to hear every radio station in the world. Do you know about this?
I have heard about that. Yeah.
It's the globe. It has like pins everywhere, and you can listen to what's on the actual like FM radio. And so I love going into there and just finding new music. I'm really not a top 100 person. I appreciate the music today, but I do see how the industry has taken over and people are participating in the music world because of the assurance of fame and money that comes with it, as opposed to the creation from the heart aspect and doing it for just doing it and not doing it for money. We had some discussions about that. And yeah, so Francis has made numerous songs that's something kind of akin to like library music in the industry of TV and radio, was stuff that was used as background music, kind of catalog music.
Like elevator music or like Muzak.
Yeah, so that's my jam. I really love elevator music. I love when things are just so kitschy. You know, I'm happy because the stuff that I'm making is not your Britney Spears.
You like this music in the background? I feel like I like screensavers and B-roll. That's kind of my thing. I love just like repetitive. It's like the visual equivalent of what you're saying Muzak is. And I have to say, some of the things that you've shared with me in the past, you've actually published albums like on Spotify. And last week you sent me a long DJ set, and then you have that kind of like 60s Monster Mash sounding playlist.
It's a lot of nostalgia build, but can I just introduce the kind of the aspects of how I got into this music creation first?
Go ahead.
So South by Southwest actually provided me a time period where I was able to have a one-on-one with a mentor who's really helped me in projects. His name's Don Stevenson III, and he had a masterclass. And he actually, at the very beginning of our conversations, got me in touch with a lady named Natalie who introduced me to OpenAI, and she was forming the first round of onboarding for DALL. I got accepted into that. This was like 5 years ago. Yeah, maybe like 2020-ish.
Oh, that's super early.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was what they were doing was, and it was fascinating because we had to go through this vetting thing. We had to get clearance, which now is just omnipresent. You know, fast forward, we're able to make images, and us as a society understands, hey, these images are AI made, whereas before we didn't really have that capability. So the first time that I had access and they were like, you have clearance, here's your login, save everything because nothing's saved. And so you just had to save your images, every output. They didn't save your outputs. It was a thing where if you liked it, you save it because you can't really find it. What it did was gave you 4 images and then 4 images and 4 images. So if you didn't save them, they just were lost. This was such a paradigm shift in my life. and I had fever dreams. I was like, I that night I was like, my God, a picture's worth 1,000 words. What's 1,000 words to a picture? Like, how is this? Oh my God, I'm living in a place where, and I woke up the next morning and I was just asking everybody for what they wanted. And I was like, okay, how do we do this? And I taught a class with Breenie Maxwell, who's a crafter that usually does like knitting for like older ladies. And I came in and we developed and talked about prompting with images, and all these older ladies and like people who attended were like, oh my God, we have the capabilities of doing this. So I'm always kind of like in my own realm pushing out these new ideas to people as fact, because we're in it. We can do this now. And so the first thing that I started doing was it was around October, creating images how I felt growing up trick or treating, right? And making those photos of being outside trick or treating in a suburban Illinois area. And I found camaraderie in two people. Ryan Bauer, he runs something called Manufactured Memory, which is still around. His route and my route were very together in what we were trying to create, that we became friends. And he introduced me last year to Udio, which was the first studio that was able to have music making. And I had early access through him. Nobody knew about it. This was when the first song came out, and it sounds like a 1950 songs, and it's "Oh my arms are stuck like this," and it has a picture. There's the girl. It has a picture of a girl whose arms are like stuck like this, and it's like this doo-wop song, but she's swearing in it, and you're just like, what? Like, how? What? Like, how did we never hear this song before? And Ryan made a 1 hour radio show, which I can give you. It's out there now, and he exquisitely created a full radio station dedicated to all types of music, that's all like, it's all hilarious and parody, but it also has this funny commentary about, are you sure you turned off the oven? Are you sure you turned off the stove when you left your house? Because your pets are in there, and it's too late. By the time you get back, your house is probably burnt down. It's that joke that's constantly running through this whole hour-long radio
Oh, so it's
which,
different genres, different sounding songs, and then they're putting in these lyrics that are almost subliminal.
yeah, all of a sudden there's like these little hints where it's like, oh, this is like, it's hilarious. And so, I bow down to you, Ryan, for creating this, because he really got me into Udio or Udio, however you want to
I was
call it.
gonna say
But
I would say Udio, but you use it more than I do. So
Udio, it's studio or audio. It's a hard one.
yeah, studio or
Right.
audio. Okay.
Well, that's my take on it. So Ryan got me into that. That's when it landed in my seat again around Halloween, to do songs, first of all, that were in response to older songs. And the first one came up with Monster Mash, right? And I was like, oh my God, there's that continual joke about how nobody knows what the Monster Mash is, because it's a song that's in the song that all the monsters dance to, but we've never heard the song before. And in my head, I was like, wouldn't that be funny if I actually had the song, The Monster Mash, but then I also had a song about the DJ monster who was making this song, bringing the song to the party, playing the record, and then having everybody not know how to dance because it's the Monster Mash. So I built these two songs that incorporate the Monster Mash, that aren't the Monster Mash, but talk about the Monster Mash.
So
And
it's iterative, really. You're taking a concept, you're adding more, and I don't even know how to describe that genre besides saying it's 60s and it's a little bit of doo-wop.
I would say crypt wop, crypt, surf crypt. It's got its little bit of a beach blanket bingo type essence into it. But from that, I was able to really curate, and this was at a time when you could only get a 30-second output. Now you can have a 2-minute 11 output, which is like a full-on song, and it's just going to take off from there. But I really appreciate Ryan's perspective in the parody aspect of these songs.
It already knows the patterns mathematically of how this genre of music looks, or, what's going to work as a pop hit. You're using that, but you're prompting it and sort of steering the direction. So the artistic act is actually that spark of imagination. And then there's the technical skill of writing the prompt. Can you tell me what like a prompt looks like in that case? Do you tend to get more with less, or do you have to try a couple times?
Definitely deals with lyrics and your overall goal. There was a time period where I found out that putting brackets and delineating chorus versus main verse became a thing where I was able to have duets appear. The first duet that I had successful was the Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein duet in my Witching Hour album that you can find on Spotify. And that was the first kind of oh my gosh moment where I realized this is how you sequence it in your lyrics so that the person singing isn't going chorus, blah, 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 and which is what I was doing. But parentheticals actually put that aside and make it analytical for your AI technology to be like, okay, this is the area in which the first verse is going, this is the chorus. And then if you delineate single chorus or high tone voice chorus, you can have multiple people singing the same thing. There's a lot of exploration. There's a lot of output that's terrible that you can't use. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to say out of the 4 months of music that I made, I only have about 6 hours that I would publicly give out to the world, which I kind of have. But I mean, and of that, probably 2 hours that I would push as like my stuff.
And are you literally writing the lyrics, or are you giving it
Yeah,
a
yeah.
prompt? And
Yep.
okay.
And usually what I do, well, I have a few ways to do it. The best way from the heart is I press that mic to text button
Mhm.
in the lyric area, and then I sing out the lyrics. I sing the lyrics as I feel they could come out and have the type of cadence and chorus that goes along with it. A lot of the times it doesn't gel. It's just voice to text. But the thing is, once you're singing it, it finds its own rhythm, it finds its own patterns in it. And then there's other times when I'll just think of the scenario and go into ChatGPT and be like, give me this lyric, but do it in this style. I want a song about being in my backyard, not being able to find food for my birds, but then a package arrives and there's seed for the birds.
ChatGPT is
And
good for that.
I think the capacity for what people can create has to be seeded with intention so much more. And we talked about that at South by Southwest. There are people out there that are just hitting prompt, 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 taking all that, throwing it into Spotify. One of my friends, Jim, and I had a talk, and he had a lecture in Lincoln Center, and he actually brought me up in the lecture talking about AI music. And he came up with this theory that I love. Think of a valley and think of a single road going through that valley, and you're driving through it, and all you see are fast food places. They just pop up, right? So in that case, the person who's just making the music, 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 putting it on Spotify, Spotify actually being guilty of making AI music, which we could talk about later, putting it into their algorithms so that it just reiterates more and more AI generated music. Think of that as fast food. People are going to have a hunger for that kind of music. It's that lo-fi, need a work, put it on the background, wallpaper music. And then you're going to have your fine dining experiences, maybe like 2 or 3 restaurants down that row that offer fine dining. That's going to be the people who are coming at it from intention and know the circuitry of the whole system and are able to kind of define their wants and craves for clients or for personal use, and their output's going to be a little bit more refined. And then as I was talking about that during South by Southwest, it popped into my mind that also there's the speakeasy. And the speakeasy is probably one per, whole deluge of fast food place. And that's the person who actually knows what they're doing and how to make the sound that they want and how to utilize all of the AI technology to get exactly what they want, when they want, how they want it.
When you said speakeasy, I thought that meant that they're like doing some shady stuff and you have to have a secret code to get it.
Well, I mean, honestly, you're not wrong on that access. It's understanding who those people are. And I think that's what it basically entails, because there's a lot of people working on this, and there's a lot of people that are working in secrecy on it too. If you think that the top music artists aren't utilizing this as templates for the songs that they want to listen to, and you think that Beyonce has not been given AI music models that have been created by people who are passing it off as theirs, you're foolish, because we're grand in the usage, and it's very present in our music libraries.
The Copyright Office did say they gave some general guidelines saying, yes, completely AI generated content, that doesn't count. There was no human involved, but it's almost like how people have been using Photoshop for the past 30, 40 years.
It's a weird thing, because if you have someone who's using ChatGPT for lyrics because one of the lyrics is off, and they find themselves getting 10 different lyrics from ChatGPT back, and they're like, oh, this one is perfect. Technically, is that AI music? Is that AI generated helped music?
And they could have done it 10 times to get that one lyric. So it is the craftsmanship. It's about like carving and whittling at the edges. I use AI all the time, but for so many things, it's just me going back and forth and pasting into a Word doc, me hand rewriting it, putting it back in there. And there is something to be said about that process, and not just taking the first, emoji and M- version of what ChatGPT does. I think certain people are getting better at it. And the thing is, a lot of people are just using the base category, the fast food that you're talking about.
And there's a market for it. I said there's an audience for everything. One of my friends posed that in the future there might be a single prompt top pop 100 song out there, but that's going to be a PR thing. That's going to be totally dependent on how successful that PR campaign is, because without that, they're not going to be able to have that top hit.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Spotify element that you mentioned before, and I'll try to give my quick recap on my understanding of it. Right now, people listen to a lot of playlists of content, and there are some categories like lo-fi beats, which is a category that I listen to. Like when I'm working, I type really fast, and if someone's saying words while I'm typing, I might type those words. So I need non-lyric based music. It ends up being like 90s video game lo-fi beats and stuff, which is fine, like because it just familiar yet new. It works. But what's been happening is Spotify has been using some AI generated content, or they've been hiring bands to create their own content, and then they don't have to pay a licensing fee that's as much because it's considered in-house. And they're just mixed in these, out of 100 songs, they could just be a certain percentage of them and nobody knows. And the thing is, the people don't necessarily care, but also it was uncovered by people in the news. It wasn't completely disclosed. So there's a whole bunch of issues of transparency, artists' rights. So what's your take on that?
Again, another paradigm shift. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. Some of the stuff that I do are murals, like that are 3 stories tall and hand painted. And there was one day late at night that I came across in the Bowery a group of people that were making a wall mural, and they were projecting it and tracing it. And I thought all this stuff was done by hand. I also liken it to me learning that Dolly Parton wore wigs at like age 27. So I see this and I'm like, my God, this is how they do it. Okay, I guess it's not like cheating, because it's obviously working and they're doing it right. I saw the moment when I realized that this huge corporation was going in, taking this AI capacity and in-house creating these songs, putting it into the algorithms so that once people listen to it, it secured the loop to just continually put in more and more secret creations of Spotify, therefore garnishing more money for Spotify and not the artists. I was like, okay, all right, so the game's afoot. I need to create music, and I need to create AI music and put it out there, because if they can do it, I can do it. And this was at a time when our lyrics weren't able to happen. This was probably 2 years ago, I feel. That's when the
Which is
Spotify
forever
thing
ago
came out.
in AI audio.
In AI, yeah, no, seriously. And so that kind of leveled the playing field for me, where I was like, okay, they're able to do this. I'm able to do this. Why am I not doing this? And why am I not seeing it as what they were seeing it as an element of creativeness, where I need to understand the tools, get on it, produce the sounds that I want. And honestly, Michael, I produced the music that I've listened to, and I have been in a completely different headspace, because I'm enjoying what I'm creating, and I'm not put on this world of having to listen to these same songs over and over, because the industry is just regurgitating it into us, and we're listening to all these songs. I kind of went through the Christmas season, and you are trying to not hear that wonderful song that you hear all the time by that blessed woman who has a voice that can sing.
Oh, you're trying really hard to not name specific people and
No, but we
we know exactly who you're talking about.
we know who she is because she was the first person to sue on behalf of AI music because her song was replicated, if not better, than her actual version, which I made a full holiday album devoted 8 songs about hearing that song that were in the Christmas mood, which was kind of amazing because we all know what this song is. It was nice to be able to have a little bit more levity on the stuff that I was listening to because it was stuff that I knew that I was prompting. And it's done a whirlwind on me because I feel better. It's a weird I do feel like music in a sense is an energy. It is an energy. But the stuff that I'm putting and feeding into myself is stuff that I've created via these prompts. And I feel a lot better, if that makes any sense. I don't know if it does.
This actually brings up something, and I think it's because you're an inherently creative person, and you almost have this impulse, and I would say borderline need to constantly be involved in the creative process, or else it might be considered painful for you.
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably not the vast majority of people, but you're on a podcast and they're not. So let's hear about your experience. Can you give me a recap of some of the albums you made? So we've heard about the 60s Monster Mash. We've heard about the We Won't Speak Voldemort's Name, but sings a Christmas song and everyone's reaction to it. What else?
Yeah. And so one of the first things that I did was put a WGAY 103.1 on SoundCloud. A lot of my stuff is on SoundCloud. And I put a link to that, made it a pull tab with a QR, and put it on the Fire Island ferry schedule. So when you are going to Fire Island, you have 20, and I timed this out. It's been a 4-year accomplishment for me. Last year, I kind of prototyped it. You have 23 minutes on the ferry from the Sayville port to Pines or Cherry Grove. And I created songs devoted to Fire Island, the Gambit, all different decades, and also had information with regards to Cherry Grove and the Pines historically involved in it, which was fun. You can listen to that on SoundCloud. I DJ a wine shop around the corner on Wednesdays. I have 23-hour-long sets that I did with them, where I would create one set based on one type of drink. So if you have and are hosting a cocktail party and you're doing, let's say, like sake, then there's like this Japanese 80s influenced jazz set that I did. But then with the accompaniment of Udio, I started making my own. So I have a samba morning set that's 23 minutes. That's all bossa novas and sambas. I just a wide variety of things. Sometimes I actually mix actual songs with the counterpart AI stuff just to see if people understand it. There's a bar next to me called the Exley, and I had a friend DJ, and I came in with my USB drive and I was like, play these songs. Then like one's Madonna singing about the amount of rats in New York City, and people were shazamming it at the bar, and I was just like, oh my god, this is hilarious. I've always wanted to do a set at a club called You Hear It Here and You'll Never Hear It Again. It's just ambient jazz that's playing that people can come up and request what the sound they want is, and I'll create it for them.
Do
But
that in real time?
yeah. It's insane because you have to really kind of be dedicated to getting your pattern set correctly, because the amount of output and then playing it all at the same time is a big feat.
It sounds like a 2 to
Um,
3 person job.
yeah, I mean, it would go super smooth with 2 or 3 people.
Can we go back to the Madonna song? I'm just curious about this. So what era of Madonna was it? How did you cater that?
It was a mix, and it's funny because I gave ChatGPT the prompt, and it came out with this la 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 look, a rat. It's dancing in the street, la 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 la, and it kept doing these la 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 lurch, la 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 laugh. What I gave it a prompt was the New Yorkers don't care about the rats, but it's the tourists that like freak out. It's kind of the Austin Powers era. It's like in that realm.
Oh, like Beautiful
For, can I
Stranger?
can I can I just show you this so that you don't get like
Yes.
too freaked out? This was for New York Fashion Week. I don't know. Can you see?
Oh,
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
She was made for New York Fashion Week for the Civilian Hotel, and so that's the scary face that was back there.
And where was she debuted?
She was in the lobby. Yeah, yeah. It was like 4 foot. I have another one that's 6 foot by 4 foot behind me.
So I have a question related to your audio and just general AI creation. Do you ever worry about the amount of energy that's used or consumed? Like, you know, how some people who are into like blockchain feel
Oh
bad
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
electricity.
No, I understand it. I know that it's a source, the amount of water that is used and the amount of energy for this, but I can't really. I mean, I don't know how could you like downsize, you know?
I have a theory on this. So that's
Uh,
why I was asking. So I was kind of a leading question. So my thought is to train a new model that takes a lot of energy, and there's kind of this space race of people that are competing to do this, so they keep training new things. But if you already have an existing model and then you're just computing within that, that's a lot less. And there are open source models, you can run them locally, and there are ways to do it where it's not necessarily a productized service that you need to win at.
Right. There's an app called Utilizing a Lot More. It's a 1.6 gigabyte Llama 3 installation. They have various ones that you can do, but it's insane. You can work offline, you can work off Wi Fi, and it will have everything for you already encompassed in the information. So I think kind of utilizing that instead of ChatGPT, which is just outsourced and cloud based and continual. I think doing a local would help. Udio, I don't really know what the capacity in output would be. I want to go to their headquarters in New York and meet some people. They had a meetup in South by. I want to talk to them, and that could be one of the things that I bring up with them.
I hope you do. You heard it here first. We're gonna follow you. Ian talks to Udio and finds out if it's Udio or Udio.
Well, that number one. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, you said that you're a multidisciplinary artist. I did ask somebody like, how would I describe Ian? They said, well, actually one of the true New York artists who's just an artist in every way possible and works full time as that in many different ways. So can I give you the quick list that I've observed? Okay,
Yes.
so besides beekeeping, which is a whole different thing.
It's the
I
whole
mean,
thing.
your Instagram handle is the single line.
It's the single line. Yep. L I
I
N
think the
E.
first time we met, we might have been in a bar and you did a single line drawing that we still have. It's a unique style, it's iconic, and I think it's actually been copied by other people at this point.
It's not a copy thing, and that's the thing. It's like I've always put it out there that anybody can do this. So blind contour is the art of drawing one line without looking at the paper. So if I draw you, I'm just drawing like this, like literally, and then I look down. Technically, it's 2 lines because I add lips, because after 3 years of drawing women, the lip always looked like a beard, and I could see that they were a little bit agitated. So, technically, I add, like, the same little lip on everybody. That's for portraits. I can draw anything, I just have to see it, and so I have a really high hand-eye coordination aspect to this art. People have to give up a lot to accomplish it because they have to encompass failure, which just in itself is a hurdle for people. You also have to be dedicated and kind of let go of the path. And you just have to know that it's going to be point A to point Z, but anywhere in between, you're just going to go. And so there's people that love it for that reason. And then there's people that will stay very far away from it after they've experienced it because it just doesn't work for them.
There's probably some analogy with AI in there, but we're just gonna leave it in the ether to understand that. Would you be able to do one of those right now? Can I put you on the spot?
I could, yeah, actually. I've got the pen.
Kind of rude of me, but I just thought that would be
Piece of
interesting.
paper.
We had
Yeah.
visual here.
So, okay, I'm gonna do a felt tip. Actually, I'll do this one. Yeah, that's better.
Do I just have to
Okay,
stay
so
still?
yep, all you have to do is stay still. There you go. Okay, so I normally ask people like, "What do you do?"
What do I do? I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a startup that's based in New York and Lisbon, and it has to do with smart contracts, art. I call it a social TV app, and I also have a lot of foundations of how AI should be used and generated and create sort of like holistic media ecosystems. And that's probably not the best 30-second elevator pitch that I've done.
I don't know if you
Oh
can
my
see that.
god.
Right.
That looks like my ear, my hair. That does look like me.
Well,
Face is a little longer,
Yeah.
but hey, I'll take it.
Well, it's also, I'm doing it on my lap instead of on a table, and I'm doing it fast and with a
I'm
marker.
impressed.
But I'm actually teaching that at Moxie this Friday. I'm just going to be teaching how to draw instead of drawing. If attendance is low, I might just draw people, but we'll see.
And you also teach people how to use AI and generative prompts. I know you mentioned one
Yep.
example with the ladies who like to knit. I'm trying to think of the recap of the things you do.
I do AR capacities, so I can build things that can be experienced in augmented reality. Where I made a huge bee sculpture with the help of Glenn Southern. He's an amazing AR artist and sculptor. He made the Pinocchio and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Yeah.
He designed that, and then they printed out 1,500 faces that were all then placed on and 3D printed to make the Pinocchio. He helped me walk through a huge bee and figure out its anatomy and physiology.
Walk through a huge
And that,
what?
a bee, not a bumblebee, a honeybee.
Wow. Like
Um,
inside a bee.
Inside, well, you're walking around the bee. I can get you a link for that, but that premiered at the Oculus and World Trade Center. And so that was pretty cool. I've done stuff where I did the first step and repeat for Fashion Week, which was an AR build out for one of the Kardashians that didn't work too well because we figured out that an AR cannot hold on the ground when you have a disco ball fielding disco ball light reflections. And so the AR kept moving along with the disco ball. So these are things that like you don't think about until you have to do. And then of course at nighttime when there's no light, you can't facilitate that as well. So yeah, so AR components. Currently working with marionettes and puppetry for my opera, which is an opera that I made in AI. So I do puppetry, I do build outs, I do installations. I have friends in all gambits of every type of creation in New York and in the world. And I occupy the mindset of creating something out of nothing all the time.
Wow. And
I also, I mean, I can produce TV shows and news stuff, and I did documentary film. Went to school for documentary.
I didn't know that part about you, the whole media production angle of things. Is that what you
Oh yeah,
studied in school or?
yeah. I was a YouTube partner. I was featured on their front page when it was not algorithms but people manicuring what was seen. I went to school for documentary film. Ended up at a company called Business POV, where I produced over 300 1 to 2 minute long kind of recaps of different corporations, different meetings. I did B2B summits for Google, everything. And that's one of the things that I think is amazing because my parents didn't irk when I said I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker because nobody says that knowing that they're going to be making money, right? And, for me to continue being passionate about creation and still evolving and making enough to survive and not thrive, but I do my own well for myself. But yeah, I went to school for documentary film and I love the aspect of storytelling and telling people stories. And I think that's one thing that has been a through and through with all the stuff that I've done is because I am completely interested in everyone's story, no matter who they are, because I feel like we are all connected and we can always find that single thread that will weave itself through every single soul in this world. And it's a hard acceptance to understand that there's people out there that don't comprehend that, but I feel like we're all very much connected.
The
So
single line.
the single line, a single line that's connected. Look at it. It's all circles.
So last year, I think it was in the spring, it was about a year
Yeah.
ago, you'd heard a little bit about what I was working on, and so it was suggested that I go and visit you. So I went to your apartment. You're in Greenpoint?
I am in the middle of Greenpoint and Williamsburg. I'm on the cusp, the north
That
cusp.
tracks. It was cool, and you were setting up because you were doing an installation that was a 90s video store
Yeah.
experience where you even had printed name tags, and the room was being set up, and it was like
Yeah.
all these video cassette tapes on the wall, and you're gonna have people walk in your house and browse and take out video
A
cassette tape.
VCR. and video cassette tapes. So it's called it was called VHS. It still is like in existence because I've accumulated over 3,400 videotapes. And my mom even told me she heard that it was like 70% of VHS has yet to be digitized. And I'm understanding that because the stuff that I have, I can't find anywhere. And I belong to kind of this world of documentation, of course. I was a librarian at college since that was my job. So, we were going Dewey Decimal to computer. And and so I'm part of this thing called the Found Footage Film Festival. If nobody knows about it,
I've
it's
heard of
like the
that
best thing in the
actually.
world.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's the best. It's two guys in Guanas, and they I forget their names.
They're like fast food training video commercials or
Oh my god, I love, and my friends hate me for it, but I will sit and watch a 2-hour training video and just really like be like dedicated to it because that's the stuff that I used to have to make. And it was like it's fun because there's passion for these people who had to do it and now it's just lost. But it's also fun because it's like it's quirky and terrible. But anywho, I had 22 people rent out 10 working VCRs still. This is an RCA to HDMI cable. So this
okay.
allows people to use their VCR and hook it up to a new TV as opposed to this thing. And I'm finding out that a lot of people don't have TVs, which was interesting. But people came in and I could see immediately people were in the wow factor, number one. Number two, they would start just going into the videos and just pulling out what they liked, seeing what the other person liked. It was a litmus test back then for if your date was going to be a good date or not, if your night was going to be good or not.
Going to the video store in the 90s was such a physical, tangible experience,
Yeah.
and before Blockbuster took over everything, it was very local.
And people having it in their hands was another thing because I could see that immediately they had memories of everything.
I think we're gonna have some curation in the future where it's almost like we have wooden blocks that have NFC chips, and you're gonna see the title, and you're gonna print that, and you're gonna tap it, and it's just gonna
Uh-huh.
play the video.
So it's interesting that you're saying that. Of in South Korea, this was part of the South by exhibit hall. There's a corporation that's kind of doing that. And so this is Blackpink. It's a band in K-pop. They're huge, right? So and it comes with all their amazing cards that you can like, oh god, where are they? There they are. There you can pick out your favorite one, right? So you get your little fan cards. But then you get this. And this is what really got me. This is a radio frequency that has like it has a little button that when you hold it down to your cell phone and you press down and you have to download the app, it's called Kit, KIT. And so you get the mic and then you press down and it says waiting for connection.
Oh, something's happening, I see it.
Yeah. So it says holding, failed to connect. Yeah. It's a radio frequency thing. It's saying failed to connect. But when it did, it had all the albums on here and then you could listen to it. But they have like keychains with just like 7 different one. It's like pocket players, pocket tunes. You
Oh,
remember
hit
that?
clips.
Hit clips. Yeah. So we're back into like this, but it's like it's sleek and it has radio. It's radio frequency instead of like ownership of a Bluetooth,
It's
which I
about the
thought was
curation,
interesting.
it's not trying to be the player because we have a lot of devices that can play audio and video that we've spent, $1,000 on, and we don't need to have another junky device that could do that.
Right. To have a tangible is going to be something that's going to be drawing more in the access of need for people instead of doing what we're doing now, which is streaming, because the ownership aspect, it's like, okay, so when you die, all these things kind of just go away. And that's what all these companies want to happen because then they don't have ownership of it anymore. That whole thing's weird.
I never thought
So
about that. So the idea of, like, inheriting your buddy's record collection if they leave the country or if they pass away or something.
as a tangible thing is something that was once a material good. And I only got this because I'm drawing a person and I'm like, so what do you do? And she was like, well, I'm an IP person and I'm coming in here because I basically deal with hereditary inheritance. Some guy has died, but he has $1 million worth of media that he owns because he bought it and it's all on Apple Library and he wants to pass it down to his family. It's like, okay, well, how can that happen? And I was like drawing and I was like, what? The stuff that I get out of people when I'm drawing too, it's insane. The amount of weird knowledge that I have.
On that note, when I went to visit you, I saw the video store and we kind of had one of those sessions. I think both of our personalities align for this, but just going deep and me kind of like jumping all over the place with what I have planned and what I'm thinking of and how the business ecosystem can function in a larger way. And then you're kind of like picking, it's like two monkeys eating bugs off each other. You're like, oh, what about this? What about this? And, at the end, you were like, I want to be involved. Can you let me do things? And I'm like, you can do whatever you want. But can you try to frame it in your mind, like what your observation is of my project? Because I'm always not the best person to describe what I'm doing.
I think it's interesting because I feel like it's dealing with milliseconds and seconds of visuals, which has kind of not been thought about. I think it's like programming and 30-minute segments and all that stuff. But what you're doing is you're actually in real time creating an opportunity for companies to have visuals that align with requirements of what they want that are very defined to create categorically. I always come back to like orange party, right? So I'm throwing the orange party. I need orange uplifting footage that will play on my screens in my club because that's what I need. And I need it for 4 hours. What you're offering is the availability to do that, to categorically go in and be like, okay, we need content that has orange feel or has an orange in it or something like that. But then what you're doing is you're having it so that the amount of eyesight on your product goes directly to the artist itself. And so while I am a dancer and I have a catalog of, let's say, 8 hours of dance footage, but I only have 14 minutes of orange dancing, you're able to draw that 14 minutes of that 8 hours section of dancing, able to say, okay, this is the orange part. We're going to use it. And then it's going to be playing in this 4 hour loop, this amount of time. And what it's done is it just naturally is designated to the artist in that capacity, which is kind of unheard of.
Yeah. So a couple things I would say differently. I'm not trying to correct you. I'm going to be improv.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Part of that concept is, again, it's about like taking the original media elements, so the original audio, video, whatever kind of content, and we're making mashups and compilations. So taking pieces of content, putting them together, and everything is a preview of something else. So that dancer that had the orange videos, they're showing that content. But if someone says, well, where'd that come from? There's always this attribution or provenance that goes back to the original. So it's kind of an ad for that person, but also at the same time, because it is considered like I would call it programmatic. I come from the ad industry and we used to track every single second or impression or click that happened when somebody was interacting with something or when it was streaming to them. And so in this case, instead of just running a traditional TV program and you find out 3 months later how that did in terms of ratings and stuff and users buying or having a different habit, right now everything's instantaneous. So we're seeing this person mixed this percentage of their content. It was this percentage of what somebody watched. And by the way, this person saw ads or they paid a subscription. So there's money going in some way. And how does that percentage get paid back to the artist? And then through smart contracts, which could be on chain or off chain, let's not get into Web3 right now, they get paid back automatically. So it's just direct instant usage, a higher payout percentage for the artists. We are still looking at test cases where we see what our platform fee should be versus what the artist gets. And actually, it looks a little sad on the Excel sheet because it's like we do all this work and then it's like, and we make this much and they make this much. But it is a vision for a better world where we actually have artists participate in this creative economy. And it's a new tier of people who want to be the remixers and the mashups, because a lot of this is like allowing for people to take pieces of media and transform it legally, because a lot of that is very much gray media. It's very quasi legal, but not. I would imagine that some of your early experimentations probably fit into that category, but it evolves over time. But I think for you, when we talked about the project, the things that really lit up in your mind were, well, first of all, it's playing with media, it's picking a theme, and it's paying artists. I think those are like the light bulbs that went off in your head. And I would also venture to guess that you could potentially, if you were having this orange party, at some point run existing footage through an AI filter to make things orange.
Yeah, yeah.
I did a pink party once. And, sometimes I'm just doing some quick and dirty Premiere Pro edits, but back in the days before everything was automated, playing with the saturation, playing with the hue, just making things pink that weren't pink. And then you realize, wow, this pink could go real fuchsia, or this pink could go real like soft rose, light red. Those are like two different colors. And you learn a lot of the subtlety. But the idea is part of it is metadata tagging, part of it is how is AI going to figure this out to scale it in the future is kind of what we're looking at. But yeah, that's Ambistream, previously called VixTape. So it's about streaming the media around you. Just to kind of hit on what you were saying about the content and like how it fits in. A lot of it is things that are sort of harder to quantify. How do we quantify a mood or a feeling, or how does this integrate into a setting? And I think the general thought is the technology will be able to do that. It already is in some capacity. And I think with the human feedback loops, we can get closer to that. And I think the idea in general is that we want people to have more options to show media around them or discover media around them that fits how they want to feel or what they want to experience or what they want to learn about. And sometimes that does have an element of surprise, but the question really comes down to who is deciding those algorithms and those systems that are showcasing that to you, which is a whole different world. I'm obviously on the side of we should be able to do that for ourselves or participate in the ecosystem. I think that some people that are a little more on the traditional corporate side would say, no, we're going to decide what this is, and you're going to click or stare or scroll and give us money.
Mhm. It would be nice if you had a group of people that would actually go in and consider what the tags are for these videos
Hmm.
and just like sit down. One of my friends, Steve, is the color creator for Victoria's Secret and
Wow.
the pink. No, it's insane.
The color
And
creator, this is like Devil Wears Prada kind of stuff.
and he knows every single pink in the world. He knows it. It's insane. And he's the one that says, this is the color for this year. And this is the color. And he's like a little bear, which is awesome just to even think about the gravitas of his choice compared to like the world of Victoria's Secret. But to be able to sit down and to watch these videos and to have human tags and then create something that would be AI that could go in and through those tags even define more metadata. That's where a lot of your potential is, I
Yeah.
think. Because I just attended a murder mystery dinner and they had a TV going, and it would be just splendid to have the candelabras and to have creaky noises every once in a while and to be able to manicure like the dinner party murder experience just on a click of a button.
Oh, we gotta have you make some of these. This
Yeah.
sounds really good. So in general, it's on the product roadmap to have an AI agent curator. So we call it the content producer, but it could be human or AI, and does things like looks at what the original video was, what the mix is, and figures out how to edit, and then decides to add things on, to filter things, what music to pair it with. But a lot of that is inspired by original humans. So we haven't really trained that yet. We're doing more like experimentation on the human side. But in general, I think the way that it should work is AI is really good at doing the mundane stuff like tagging. Like if we were to look here, we'd see brown 80s living room, we'd see two guys with a beard, gingham, whatever this is, plaid. Like we would have those things that could just, it's pretty much low hanging fruit. And then you'd probably find some more obscure things that the AI wouldn't know to do yet. So I think that there is that kind of spot checking. And I do think that that's always a part of successful system. And I think that we are moving in a world where there is going to be a lot of AI governance and checking, even fun art things, but also for like serious work things. And we probably need people who maybe have been displaced from having jobs to have a job to sit there and just be the human addition in that loop at some point. That's great that AI is doing a lot of that stuff, but we still need people to do something. And that's a perfect job. They could be like at the toll booth at an easy path lane,
Yeah.
something like that.
Does this photo have purple in it? And you're like, yeah. And
Yeah.
you just go in and
One thing I wanted to mention was, so we have our MVP app coming out soon, which is an iOS
yeah.
app that you could cast onto a TV and change channels.
Awesome.
Again, minimum viable product, so it doesn't have all the features I would love to have, but it does show the general use case. And so what we're going to be doing is reaching out to what I call ambassadors, but like artists, venues, and people who have house parties pretty much, and saying like, hey, we want you to broadcast this on your TV, just AirPlay or cast it to whatever device you want and play the music and just see what happens. See what people like, what they don't like, what should we upload to create more content. Pretty much because mentors and investors want us to do that, but also it needs to have a life outside. So we will be reaching out to some people to showcase videos. It sounds like you're kind of in a lot of places where this would be great for. Like at the wine bar or at, the Moxie or something. So I'm definitely going to talk to you about that. This is like beta testing, really.
Right.
I think the ideas of what happens are things that we can't plan. And so it's like, how do we keep an observational mind or be curious about it and sort of learn? And I think you'll probably crack it open and find some unintended uses that are awesome.
Yeah, I think yeah, there's a lot out there. I'm trying to facilitate who has TVs and who doesn't. So that's where my
Yeah, the TV projector, and that's true. Like sometimes I say, if you're at a beautiful sunset beach bar, you don't want to be staring at a TV. Something is wrong if you're turning your back to a beautiful scene and you're staring at a TV. But there are moments
right.
where obviously media and screens make sense. And I think ultimately it is about what do you see in public or on a stage and what do you want to bring home to your personal environments. There's definitely a different level of intimacy and content selection. So anyway, I wanted to ask about the bees.
Yeah, yes.
You're a big bee fanatic and you've done some beekeeping on rooftops, is that correct?
Rooftops and islands are my two ways that I do bees.
How did you get involved with bees?
So that was something that I needed to for my soul. So I got married and I coincidentally got a divorce, but there were some things that were going on in my life that I needed to kind of reconnect and ground to do things that I wanted to do. I was at a party with a friend who, was creating the party. And then afterward, he was like, I really need to get this wrapped up because I'm off to my hives. And I said, what? His name's Steven Rogenstein. And he's currently, I think, in Berlin. He was in Spain before, but he is a huge beekeeper. I had always been into bees. I've always been into insects. I've always wanted to be an oceanographer. Never wanted to go to space, but I like space. I love insects. And so that's something that just kept with me. And I had the opportunity to visit a rooftop hive in Park Slope. And from then on, I was introduced to a gentleman named Guillermo Fernandez who ran the Honeybee Conservancy. And he offered me an apprenticeship where I was trained and learned through my master beekeeper, Karin Zinter, at the Queen Zoo, which I thought was even cooler because it's at a world fair at the Queen Zoo, and we were working with queens and their bees. And then from then on, I dedicated my time to the Governor's Island bees for the Bee Conservancy. I also managed the Battery Park ones, and then Hell's Kitchen. And I privately taken on, and I'm seeing today, the Mercer bees, which is at the rooftop of the Mercer Hotel. And so that's a private hive. I'm happy to say that both queens survived over the winter and are superfluous, including one new queen that I'm checking to see hatch today in a split, meaning I've taken a hive and split them so that they don't swarm. And so that was 6 years ago, and I've been beekeeping for them. I'm enthusiastic about bees. When people talk and they find out that I'm a beekeeper, I can't stop the questions that come at me, and I have a fun time always talking about bees.
They're doing better than they were a few years ago, right? Hasn't there
They're
been
doing better. Yeah, colony collapse disorder kind of went on the wayside. It's our dependency on almonds. So if you want to do something for the bees, kind of wean yourself off almond, you could do oat milk, you could do milk. You can make your own oat milk, which is super easy, but almonds are a huge defining pollination aspect to honeybees. Kind of, we put them through the rigmarole for them to get the pollination done for the almonds that we just constantly eat. And also just understanding the capacity in honey. So it takes 12 single bees their whole life to make 1 teaspoon of honey. There's over 20,000 types of bees in the world and only 6 make honey. So that's kind of saying that every bird in the world is a chicken. There's a lot of different pollinators out there that are stingless, that are solitary bees, that are wasps, that do a lot of the pollination for the foods that we want.
I thought, how am I going to segue this to the closing of this conversation? Thank you. You've been amazing, by the way. One of the things I've thought about in terms of media interfaces and predictive technology about how we want to feel, I was actually thinking a lot about how bees communicate through pheromones, that they
Mhm.
have chemical signatures and that they're communicating. I would guess like sharks sense electromagnetic fields, birds can see ultraviolet pathways or things like that. Or I think they also see electromagnetic fields. And I think in the future, as we have sensors that decide what data are we going to look at to help create what is around somebody, I do think that human pheromones or human emotional signals, vibes, or maybe what you call an aura through some sort of science could be a way to actually detect that. And I think that bee technology, with just how they've evolved to adapt naturally, could be one of those ways to do it.
Oh, they're using AI for beekeeping. I know one of my friends, Noah, is a beekeeper. He started Best Bees in Boston. They're utilizing AI technology that now we're able to see with accuracy which types of bees are coming in, male, female, which ones are leaving, when their biggest time that they go off, which beforehand was not ever allowed to do because it was just so fast. But now we have the AI technology that they can figure out which ones have varroa just by sight.
Have what?
Varroa, it's like a backpack that the bees carry that's actually a mite that slowly depletes their exoskeleton and gives them asthma, and then they die. Came over in Japan in the 1970s with the agriculture.
But what about their privacy? We're just tracking them with AI without their consent?
Sometimes it's needed.
All right. Well, any ideas for how to close this one?
Well, I mean, yeah, my albums are through my band, which is called the Royalty Free Ian. That spawns itself off of Everybody and Everything as a remix. So you can find those on different platforms. But my SoundCloud, which I'll provide the link, has the gambit of all my different hour-long sessions. If you want to host a party, feel free to use them.
Yeah, so there was the AIDs, right?
Now that's what I call the AITs. It's a play on now that's what I call the 80s.
Or now that's what I call music, or I love the
All of it.
yeah.
All of it.
Yeah, so if people are still watching the podcast at this point, Ian has made a ton of music and he's posted them on these sites. We're going to post some links, and he's going to continue to create music and content and just pretty much anything remotely creative around his vicinity and put it on the internet. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and I think we'll be in touch in the future because I have a feeling there's a lot that we're going to want to talk about.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.